So here's recording everything. Okay. Why is it so important to have relationship, harmonized condition between a science and religion? If we look at the simple meanings, definitions of these two, science is our knowledge, and per dictionary's definition, it's a state of knowing. It's that it distinguishes from misunderstanding. And what is religion? Set of principles, systems of belief that basically guide us through life. Now, there is a condition between these two, and the similarities would be simply they both are sources of information, sources of guidance for enhancing our lives. Without one, the other one would be lacking in some way. So the point I was going to make here about the relation between these two is that they both share one pivotal point, and that is the knowledge, information that they provide for us to go through our lives. On this slide, I like to show the origins of these two concepts. Religion originally, per this definition, came from times of ancient, that is basically reverence for God, sense of light, moral obligations. And science, on the other hand, are systematic ways of learning about our environment. So both these sets of information are enhancing our lives. Now, when we are talking about science, I like to talk about real science versus pseudoscience. The real science is something that we can examine and repeat to come with the same results. That's a true science. It's repeatable, it is empirical, whereas pseudoscience is something that we could conjecture, we could look at it, but we won't be able to prove in terms of repeatability to get it coming through once again. We can't take an ape, for instance, and somehow accelerate its growth towards gaining consciousness to the point of becoming human being. Same as we can't take a bird and make a lion out of it. They're different species. And so, but we all know from the pseudoscience point of view of evolution, some scientists believe that we all came from the ocean. We were just nothing but little amoebas, and through the time and the environment's influence, we changed and eventually became human beings, gained consciousness. Well, that consciousness is what, as Baha'is, we believe is the spirit that animates us. It is not of this world, it is not material. So back in the 18th century, these two scientists, or rather scholars, not quite necessarily scientists, John Draper was a scientist, the other one, Andrew Dickson, was a newspaper publisher, but they were prominent individuals, and they subscribe to the idea of the similarities and quite conflict between science and religion, that there would be irreparable, irreconcilable differences. So there's always going to be a fight between the two schools of one on that one hand scientists, the other one theologists, trying to come up with some agreement. Well, their hypotheses finally were basically sent out. There are no people these days that actually adhere to that sort of a thought. People have come to understanding that we can always come up with solutions. All we need to do is be able to sit amicably around and have a conversation. In terms of referencing my understanding of what is religion, what is science, I pulled out some quotes from the Baha'i faith and also from other scriptures. Baha'u'llah tells us that religion is barely the chief instrument of for the establishment of order in the world and of tranquility amongst people. And from Torah, we find out that it says the purpose of religion is not only to call for salvation of the soul, but to bring the divine light into our lives. And also in the King James Bible, says pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world. What does that mean? It means that referring to our consciousness, fair attitude, service, helping others. So again, that guideline, that information coming from religious point of view, religion's description, is giving us guidance, is telling us, helping us to live better lives. And in Quran, we also have this word that says, who could be better in religion than those who direct themselves wholly to God? Do good and follow the religion of Abraham, who was true in faith. God took Abraham as a friend. Again, it's a guidance that tells us do the right things. So it's information, again, for the betterment of our lives. What is the interaction between these two concepts, the synergy between science and religion? Well, religion and science are the two wings upon which man's intelligence can soar into the heights with which the human soul can progress. It is not possible to fly with one wing alone. Should a man try to fly with the wing of religion alone, he would quickly fall into the quagmire of superstition. Whilst on the other hand, with the wing of science alone, he would also make no progress, but fall into the despairing sloth of materialism. And that's what Abdu'l-Baha had clearly indicated the relationship between these two, is they're complementary sets of information. Without one, the other one would lack, and our progress would be hindered. human progress would be hindered, in a nutshell. The accord of religion with science, or the harmony between them, has to make sense. In other words, anything that comes through religious belief and would completely disagree with the science would be superstition. People cannot take it in and believe in. Well, some do, and they fall short of advancing spiritually, coming to the newer life. According to Abdu'l-Baha, in the principles that are recorded in Proclamation of the Universal Peace, it says the accord is the fifth principle, of course, after oneness of mankind, common foundation of the religions being one, and etc. That he says it also addresses the following truth for the unity of mankind, for man, humans, love, and affection. Looks like Phyllis wants to comment again. So, and Baha'u'llah says religious beliefs should not contradict science and reason. And he has a hidden word, says, "O ye that dwell on earth, the religion of God is for love and unity. Make it not because of enmity or dissension." Again, referring back to the two scholars of 18th century, that they said there's no reconciliation between these two. Baha'u'llah adamantly says that they do need to work together, and without one, the other one is not going to help humanity. Another writing reference from Abdu'l-Baha in Proclamation of the Universal Peace, that when he says the third teaching of Baha'u'llah is that religion must be the source of fellowship, the cause of unity, and the nearness to God. If it arouse hatred and strife, it is evident that absence of religion is preferable, and an irreligious man better than one who professes it but acts against, basically. So according to the divine will and intention, religion should be the cause of love and agreement, should bond and unify all mankind. Religion must be the cause of unity and love, that it must be the means of binding hearts together, the cause of life and illumination. So again, reiteration of previous statement. So here on this slide, I have few notes about science. Baha'u'llah in his tablet counsels the believers to study such science and arts that are useful to humanity, that help them progress and advance in every society that they dwell. He also cautions against the sciences that begin and end with word. In other words, have no result, and just word but no action. And he says the pursuit of which leads to idle disputation. Shoghi Effendi, also the grandson of Abdu'l-Baha, says that In a letter on his behalf written to an individual, says that science that begin with word and end with word is basically fruitless excursion into metaphorical hair splitting. And I think that's where this conflict of irreconcilable differences between religion and science comes from. People debating and not consulting, trying to figure out, find the common ground, which I believe the common ground is that information. They both are complementing one another. They provide information that one helps us live the chaste life, be fair to fellow human being, and the other one tells us what to do to not hurt ourselves, our physical being. So here I find this very interesting. The second leaf says, religion is verily the chief instrument for the establishment of order in the world and tranquility amongst people. So religion basically, as the information provided through, helps us to live a better life, get along, basically. And in third effulgence, the Tajalli, it is stated that concerning the art and craft and science, it says, knowledge is as wings to man's life. Again, we're talking about science here. And the ladder for his ascent, its acquisition in incumbent of its acquisition is incumbent upon everyone. In other words, it encourages every human being to learn about the physical environment, the science around which we live. The knowledge of such sciences, however, should be acquired as can profit the people of the earth, and not those which begin with word and end with word. Again, reiterated here from previous indication. This is recorded in Kitab-i-Aqdas, the most holy book for Baha'is. In the book of certitude, Kitab-i-Iqan, Baha'u'llah writes, among the sciences which this pretender has professed is that of alchemy. We cherish the hope that either a king or a man of preeminent power may call upon him to translate this science from the realm of fancy to the domain of fact, and from the plane of mere pretension to that of actual achievement. Now we know the science of alchemy was entrenched back in before the Middle Ages, even with a lot of beliefs that you could magically make something out of something. But here is mentioning that though the science might be there, it would take a person of knowledge to be able to make something out of, basically change one element to another. And we know that through the, I think it's called CERN, Hadron Accelerating Laboratory, they have been able to separate particles, atoms and electrons, and protons and neutrons, and accelerate them, hit them to create some new particle, which is where humanity is not anywhere near, per se, to take the lead and change it to gold. That was one of the aspirations of the alchemists. They wanted to somehow make something so precious from seemingly worthless material, being the lead. And the lead is not a really worthless material. We know that many of acid batteries in the cars do use lead, without which car batteries wouldn't work. So here I have found some answers to the questions that people may have had regarding the harmony between science and religion. Case in point is the treatment of the subject of evolution of species, which I kind of pointed out to in earlier. It takes explicitly in part 4, as it mentions here, and which must be understood in light of several Baha'i teachings, especially the principle of harmony of science and religion. Religious belief should not contradict science and reason. Again, referring to the evolution, which I believe is pseudoscience, because we cannot come up with a result other than observation that, yes, there are certain genetic traits, DNAs in certain links of it shared between human and other living species, animals, basically. But that is not a conclusion to draw to say people, basically human beings, evolved from animal kingdom. Baha'is strive to reconcile their understanding of the statements of Abdu'l-Baha with established scientific perspectives, and therefore it is not necessary to conclude that these passages describe conceptions reject by science. For example, a kind of parallel evolution that proposes a separate line of biological evolution for the human species, parallel to that of animal kingdom. That's more understandable because we know the process of adaptation. You take say a polar bear, take an example, predominantly lives in the Arctic region, has developed darker skin, kind of a tubal, light, almost like fiberglass fur that takes the very minute amount of sunlight that is existing in that part of the earth and concentrates onto the dark skin and absorbs heat that way and is able to survive and not freeze to death. You take that animal, bring it to, say, a tropical region. If you could gradually provide the conditions for it to kind of step down from requiring that cold, dark uh, air and atmosphere to adapt to the sunshine and whatnot is available in the tropical. That may happen, that can happen. And we do have species of bear living in different parts of the world. But you can't take, let's say, a parrot from Amazon and bring it to North America, and through some kind of a magical approach, change that parrot to, say, an alligator, even though scientifically it's been shown that birds and reptiles are kind of cousins of one another. They have changed, evolved because and adapted to the new conditions. But that is not to say that us human beings have also gone through one form of existence to what we are now, and have gained consciousness. We can solve problems, we can communicate verbally, and who knows, maybe in the future we'll be able to communicate telepathically. Right now we can put something on our head and think about, and wires connected to the other sensors, and the other person on sitting across from us would kind of see or hear what we're saying. But those are different kind of approach to science in terms of being a real science, the true science. Lastly, on the last paragraph, I have, it says, for Baha'is, the science of evolution is accepted, but the conclusion that humanity is merely an accidental branch of the animal kingdom will all its attendant social implications is not. And Abdul Baha assures us that that is so. This is my last slide. Education that brings East and West under man's domain produces all these marvelous crafts, promotes mighty arts and sciences, gives rise to new discoveries and undertakings. We're not far for an, if it was not for the education on educators, demands and the means of comfort, civilization, and human virtues. Human virtues could in no wise have been acquired. If a man is left alone in a wilderness where he sees none of his own kind, he will undoubtedly become a mere animal. That was kind of not necessarily saying that would change, turn into, become a, I don't know, lion, but lack of connection with other human beings makes the person so isolated that if they see another person after some time, they may not react well enough. Human education, however, consists in civilization and progress. That is sound governance, social order, human welfare, commerce and industry, arts and science, momentous discoveries, and great undertakings, all of which are the central features distinguishing a man from animal. In other words, it's our consciousness, it's the spirit that animates our body and gives us that capability to utilize our neurons and store information in there and analyze and deduct and come up with solutions and be able to communicate with one another and put heads basically together and think together and consult basically and determine, come to better understandings. So the point I want to reemphasize and maybe to take out of this presentation today is that there's a relation between science and religion. The common ground is the information. They both provide usable information for our guide that guide our lives and for the betterment of it. They do not contradict one another. If there's some scientifics saying that religion has no place in our world, they become purely materialistic. And if a religious guider, I guess, says that science is completely out of the realm of commonality with religion, then it would open up door for all kinds of superstitions. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. And with that, I thank all who participated in tonight's presentation, and we'll see how it went. Again, thank you all for joining.
Oh, thank you so much, Kamran, for I think really stimulating a lot of thoughts. I know, and I'm sure in all of our heads. I'm wondering if anyone has questions or comments that they would like to share, and that were thoughts that were sparked by some of the quotes from the Baha'i writings that Kamran shared about the harmony of science and religion.
Hi, my name is Dan. I've met a couple of people on this call. I don't think I've met Kamran and some of the other folks, but thanks for, Julia invited me to this, and I've been to a few Baha'i events recently, and I'm kind of exploring the faith. So, and this is one of the things that intrigued me. And I was just curious about some of the things that were said, just so I can understand them a little bit. And I guess my first question is the evolution, and I'm trying to understand a little better the kind of the teachings and how they relate to evolution. And maybe I'll paraphrase what I think, Kamran, your understanding is, and let me know if you think I misunderstood, or if you want to clarify. So to me, it sounds like evolution is accepted in the Baha'i faith and the teachings, and it's not an accident. Human beings evolved not out of accident, but I guess, for lack of a better term, design, or because of God's plan to have this human race develop in the way we did and evolve in the way we did. Does that sound like what you're trying to communicate?
Well, you notice that in Baha'i faith, the belief of evolution, the concept of evolution is understood. It's not rejected. But to say one species evolved from another one, totally different.
Okay.
That's where the draw is, that it is confusing the subject matter altogether. I think there was a quote that mentioned that evolution happening in parallel. In other words, in the animal kingdom, we see adaptation to a different environment. That's evolution of that particular species. Whereas human beings being evolved from ape or all life started from amoeba coming out of the sea is kind of far-fetched.
Okay.
I don't know, anyone else is going to explain it
Walter
better?
had a comment.
Yeah, I think what Cameron just explained cleared up some of those thoughts. I think I put in the chat a article that Abdul Baha wrote. It's called "Man and Evolution." So if anybody wants to read that and put it more in perspective, what Cameron was saying, you should go to the chat and just copy and then paste it to wherever you want to get to it later. But
Thanks, Walter.
It's from Abdul Baha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you, Dan, for that great, question, exploring it more so we can all clarify our understanding. So
I just wanted to add something just because this was one of the things that was really challenging for me. And I just wanted to share kind of my understanding, as a scientist who studied evolution in school. And I think what I came to understand by reading the writings, and this is just my understanding, is that we do believe that man appeared differently at different times during evolutionary history, that we may not have always looked like we do now, that we have changed, but that man is a different actual branch of the evolutionary tree because we were endowed with a soul. And we were always, as you mentioned, by design, Dan, that man was created by design and they always had the soul. Whereas other organisms didn't necessarily have that they have the spirit, they have other gifts, that, and Abdul Baha talks about that, the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. And that man was endowed with the soul and the mind. And so I just wanted to bring that we may have looked like an amoeba or we might have looked differently, but we weren't the same. So I don't know if that's helpful. And that's just my understanding again.
Almost like a different cellular lineage, I guess, in a way. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you both, Walter and Julia, for helping through. Yes, I have had numerous discussions with my second son, who studied biology at CSUN, and we both agreed that adaptation, if you will, to reference it as sort of an evolution in species, could take place based on the environment, based on availability of food, nutrients for them. There would be some changes happening to them, but it's nowhere to say that all beings, including humans, having come from the same basically string of existence and basically changing to what we are now.
As you were speaking, Cameron, I was thinking of, I guess coming from public health background, about advances, some of the advances, such as just, basic sanitation being brought, to communities in the world, or, antibiotics and, really the transformation that occurred in, everything from people's, span of existence on Earth. But really, I was thinking more about the ability to be able to, I guess, focus on some of the, I don't know what you would say, more higher spiritual levels, or be able to focus on developing potential, spiritual potential, as communities, as individuals, because of those, really fundamental advances in science as well. So that was just a thought. And also, when you were talking, sharing the quote about alchemy, I was thinking about, how, again, religion, on the other hand, does have the power, right, to, transmute, these very humble beings, in the Baha'i writings. It has a beautiful quote about, the power of the word of God to transmute copper into gold. And I was thinking about how religion does do that. So
Truly, yes. How, and not in a physical existence, changing copper to gold, but it's enlightenment in terms of our consciousness. When we say a prayer and actually reach to a higher station and try to get closer and closer to our Creator, the God, is our consciousness expands, our capacity grows. Simply the attributes of physical attribute of that is perhaps if we are saddened and when we say prayer, ask for assistance, we kind of feel relieved. Our anxiety kind of subsides a little bit. And that kind of a transformation, I make it analogous to the statement of copper changing to gold. Our station of being sad was the copper, and then coming to some joyous state is the gold. But I appreciated Dan for invoking these wonderful, conversation coming through by your question. I especially thank my son David also joining this talk today, and everyone is free to kind of express their thoughts about the two concepts of religion and science. To me, they are both sources of information that enhance our lives, and it's quite different for human being than it is for other kingdoms, animal and mineral, etc.
Again, let me talk about what I posted in the chat. I tried it twice, and I'm not sure everything that's in the article is posted there because it seems to have a limit of how many characters can be put in a chat post. So
if you want to share it, Walter, see if you can. Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll give my email, and I will then, if someone wanted to get that whole article, I'll just email it to them. So I'll just put my email in the chat and forget all that other stuff I posted.
I definitely would like you to send it to me.
Okay.
And then, is it from some answered questions, or is it?
It's from the Baha'i World Faith.
Okay.
And it has the page numbers and things. And
fantastic.
Right. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
Again, thank you, Walter, for sharing that.
I think it's a really important concept, the idea of science and religion, especially now because we have so much capability that we're able to do so much in science. And it's so important that we balance, even though if we can do something that maybe it's not what we should be doing. And so we have that spiritual compass to help us navigate through all these advances in science.
That actually, Julia, really brings up a big question that I struggle with, being in working in the labor and delivery, reproductive technology, and all that we've done with that is always a big question of what should we do? You know, where should we, is there a line to be drawn? Because science has just done amazing things, both in enabling people to have children that couldn't before, and in expanding the capability of babies born at, you know, earlier and earlier gestational ages to survive. And it's always a big question to me. Where do we draw the line on what we should be doing?
I keep thinking of the balance in life when it comes to both these concepts, science and religion, and putting it in a sort of a rudimentary comparison. If you look at us having two legs, if one leg is way progressed longer than the other one, walking would be difficult. We could still walk but hop. So there has to be some balance. And I believe the ethics of how far science could be pushed is one of the things that humanity needs to consider, balance it with the religion.
Cameron, sorry, my computer was really acting up. Did you, in the first 25 minutes that I missed, did you have the quote about science and religion, that you have to have both because science without religion is, so what was that quote? Do you,
Yes,
you have that?
I can bring it back up, share it. I think it's this one you were looking for. Religion and science are the two wings upon which man's intelligence can soar into the heights, with which the human soul can progress. Now, it's talking about intelligence and the soul, the two different, one being material connection or synapses and whatnot, and the other one, soul, or what animates us, our spirit. It says it is not possible to fly with one wing alone. Should a man fly or try to fly with the wing of religion alone, he would quickly fall into the quagmire of superstition, whilst on the other hand, with the wing of science alone, he would also make no progress, but fall into the despairing sloth of materialism. So there's that balance.
So for me to go back to what Barbara was saying, unfortunately with reproductive medicine, when I was in that, in IVF nursing, we saw that there was not strong ethical rules governing the doctors, and it caused some poor decisions to be made, and it continues to cause ethics problems because our technology was all of a sudden has made leaps and bounds. And it's exactly what Barbara said. We might be able to do a lot of things, but should we? And our technology has just gotten farther than the ethics in that field. And when technology outpaces our morals and our ethics, that's where, unfortunately, materialism can creep in and profit. So it's a really tough area to be in. And it's kind of the Wild West. It's not a lot of guideline. There's guidelines, but that's all they are. So I see a progress from when we had Octomom. That was really the flashpoint of, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And it seems to have calmed down, but boy, there's some wide open things there that we haven't figured out yet, that we just need to make a lot of progress on. I just like the end of that quote, because it really shows that technology without morality and a higher sense of responsibility and faith is not a good thing. We need both, and to rely on only faith and only religion, that God is going to protect me. Well, I believe God gave us technology to cure diseases and to bring us safer ways of living and to progress in medicines. And you got to have both.
Yeah, for me, it's staying here again. If without some type of moral guidance, it's like raising your kids in a way. You can give them all these great things, but if they got to be given guidance on how to use them, otherwise, bad things can happen. That relationship I see.
So when we consider both those gifts of information that we as human beings are privy to, religion and science, when we keep them in balance, one doing checks and balances on the other one, and then, vice versa, then the issue of morality or immorality of how far science could be pushed would be answered. Funny thing is that it just reminded me when I was affiliating with projects at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, we were mandated to go annually through some trainings. One of them was ethical training. And I do remember that they kept always saying the subject of ethics, what is ethical? And it would come down as their description to whatever everyone accepts and agrees to becomes ethical. That was funny thing that I would always observe, and being one person in there that kind of disagreed with that statement. Couldn't say anything because, I was supposed to be following their rules. But ethics is not something that, okay, we all agree. Let's say everyone agrees that walking to neighbor's home without announcement and sitting down at the dinner table is something okay. So do we do that? I think that's what sort of indirectly answers or refers to what Dan was saying. You raise up your children without guidelines, then that would become more of a one-sided approach to upbringing. So it is an interesting concept and dilemma in a way, dealing with ethics in today's society.
Yeah, I agree with you. Fortunately, I think in terms of with religion, and if you believe that religion is the medicine for mankind to live by, then you go by what the manifestation of God, the prophet of God, has said, as opposed to what individuals debate about what's right and what's wrong. Yes, you're informed by you're informed by the prophets of God, and when you use that and in all your dealings and your conclusions about life and science and whatever else, when you include that perspective in it, I think it will favor what the prophet of God has said, and in that direction, so that those ethics become less political motivated, less socially or racially motivated, or all those kinds of things that ethics springs from. And yeah, anyway, I think I'm probably confusing myself now, but there we go. That's what I had to offer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
You made me think of the wealth of books and that we have. You know, we're so fortunate to have so many writings from, you know, Baha'u'llah, Abdu'l-Baha, and Shoghi Effendi, and the Universal House of Justice, where we can find so many, so much inspiration to help us make decisions, and the prayers too that help. And then there's also, of course, consultation that we have available to us to help us. So all those tools you just brought, you know, what you were saying made me think about that, how fortunate we are that we have that to try to keep us on the right path.
So it's 6:10. I think we can go on. There's indefinitely, but if everyone shared their thoughts and comments, maybe we could call it a night.
Yeah, before we do, I just wanted to thank you, Cameron, for presenting the subject, and it was well done, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you all for joining in today and listening to what I had offer in my limited understanding of, and I try to pull references from scriptures and the writings to kind of analyze the two concepts in my opinion, and share it with you all. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
much, Kamran.
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Kamran.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye
Bye-bye.
all.
So next month, or
Yes.
something upcoming, well, I'm not sure what the fireside subject will be or topic will be for next month that the Baha'is of Simi Valley sponsor, but as soon as we figure that out, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah. We were working, most likely, I'm not quite sure, but it would be a video presented by Rainn Wilson, that he talks about what is the Baha'i faith. And we'll have 3 or 4 of us kind of standing by to answer questions when they rise up. But it's not quite gelled. But as Walter was mentioning, it would be on the, what would that be? Should be, we normally have it on the 4th Thursday, or rather Saturday of, yeah, looks like maybe could be on the 22nd of May, but it's not quite gelled. Thank you. Thank you, Walter, for mentioning it. I completely forgot all about it.
Dan, it's so nice to see you and meet you virtually after we talked on the phone, a number of months ago. So I'm glad to have gotten to meet you in this meeting.
Thanks all. It was
Thank
very
you.
interesting, very educational. Thank you, Cameron.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining in. Hopefully we'll have more talks and get-togethers once the COVID is over. We could get together even. All right.
All right, good night.
Good night, all.